a gentleman by the name of Anthony Cook. He was a Cold Regions Army geologist. Took 7,100 feet of core samples in 9 different areas of Antarctica. And of these 9 different glacial areas in Antarctica, he found over 2,000 volcanic explosions, volcanic eruptions. He found glacier ice, volcano, glacial ice, volcano, volcano, volcano. Over 2,000. These volcanoes were still going off. The earth was still, all of this that had occurred was slowing down, but it had not reached an equilibrium yet. And now you've got all of this snowfall. If you have 4/5 of an inch a day of snowfall, within less than 300 years, you're going to have a glacier that's 6,336 feet. That's a big glacier. That's what we're seeing now. It doesn't take forever to form these glaciers. And the model that is used by the creationists shows that the glacial period occurred over about 500 years. It slowly built up, it slowly crept down. No more than 1/3 of the globe was involved in glaciers, but it reached its peak at 500 years. Now, why did it reach a peak? And what made it recede back to what we see today? And the answer is very simple. The oceans. They cooled down. Over a period of time, the ocean water cooled down. And so you had less and less being dumped in places, less and less water till it reached its equilibrium. And so you see the Fertile Crescent, and you see all the areas that used to be, that are currently desert, back in Abraham's day and before it was fertile. It was beautiful. Trees, grass, lots of animals. Why? Because it had lots of water, because the oceans were still warm. Does that all make sense? So, because you have cover over you of clouds, you are robbing the earth of some of the sunlight, so your winters are warmer. Your summers are cooler. Now, winters would be warmer. If any of you gone backpacking or camping, you know that when there's a starry night and there's no cloud cover, it's colder. So you put the clouds over, it's warmer. So you didn't have the extremes that we have now, all because the ocean was warmer. Okay, but the ocean is slowly cooling down. So the glaciation reaches a peak, stops at about 500 years, and takes about 200 years to recede back to where we are now. So it's about 700 years of time post-flood that you had this ice age. And during this ice age, the animals and people flourished after God said enough with the Tower of Babel and the rest of you guys, and spread everybody out, and everybody was able to spread across land bridges and so forth. And now you had the world becoming populated and peopled again with the animals too. But the woolly mammoth. What about the poor little guy? Okay, I'm trying to turn again. Doesn't want to. Thanks. Warm oceans plus warm ocean air plus wet climates equal good pasture. And the woolly mammoth just south of the glacier. And as the glacier is growing, the woolly mammoth is up there. He just goes a little further south. And it's water, it's rain. And they have a lot of pasture. And not just the woolly mammoth, the woolly rhinoceros, the antelopes, the reindeer, you had saber-toothed tigers, you had all kinds of animals up north, just south of the glacier. And they were thriving just fine. And these were big, warm beasts with lots of woolly on them. No permafrost, no deserts, okay? You're either becoming glaciated or you're getting poured on by water. And the earth is replenishing itself. This is not something that the evolutionist takes into account, because he's looking at the environment as it is now, and he doesn't see that kind of rainfall. But that kind of rainfall was inevitable post-flood. And so you've got the warmer winters, cooler summers. You have a lot more rainfall, warm ocean. And as the ocean cools down, everything starts to reverse itself back to what we see today. Well, the woolly mammoth had a problem. Next. That's next. Thank you. The woolly mammoth ran in the wrong directions. All the woolly mammoths 5, 6, 7% of them all show decay. They all show that they died of some form of suffocation of some type, or broken bones and severe trauma. They all died, looked like somebody came in and just beat them all up and snuffed out their little lives. Other animals that were up there were able to get away. The woolly mammoth, the big guy, really couldn't get away very well. And he was doing just fine, but he couldn't move as fast. Now I talked to you about Lake Missoula and the ice bridge that broke at Lake Missoula and came down and gave us the Scablands and Moses Lake and the potholes and all the way out to the Columbia Gorge. That was all caused in a couple of days by the Missoula flood that broke right straight through out into the ocean. Okay? We know that. The geologists, the evolutionary geologists agree with us on that. Now you take and multiply that by hundreds or thousands, and I told you the Missoula flood at that time was one-fifth the size of Lake Michigan, and it opened up and flooded out. Now you have the Ice Age, and it's melting backwards, so it's going back up. It's melting. So you get pools of form of this ice melt, and it either melts and goes out, or some of it gets trapped in with these ice dams, and the water builds up until the ice dam breaks, and out it goes. We have evidence that this happened all over the globe, in Siberia and elsewhere, where the woolly mammoth was. You had this huge flood, knocked down all the woolly mammoths, just desiccated them, suffocated them, and they died. And then another set died, and another set died. Even today, right now, if you take a minus 20 degree Fahrenheit and you go up to the high plains up in the Dakotas or someplace, farmers with their cattle have to bring their cattle in. Otherwise, every year you find cattle that are suffocated because of winter. It gets minus 20 degrees, put a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and you have a minus 78 degree wind chill factor. The cattle can't take out a Kleenex and blow their nose. And so all the secretions, everything from the eyes, it freezes. And they will literally lay down and suffocate and die. So you have to bring them in. This also happened to the woolly mammoth. Even today, you're seeing species after species after species dying, becoming extinct. And it's not all our fault. It's not always hunters who are killing them to extinction. It's because this whole ecology, everything on this earth is out of balance. And we are witnessing the death of our planet. A death that if God didn't come and come soon, there would be nobody else on the globe. I mean, it's just pure and simple as that. We are watching global warming, all this other kind of stuff. There's a lot of things that are happening that many people think they have a lot of different explanations. But the fact is, there are no new species, and we're losing more and more. It won't be long until there'll be no tigers, no lions. I mean, there are big animals that are almost near extinction, and we're losing more and more. The woolly mammoth was just one of those in the past that became extinct. And some of the evidence that we have about him and how he may have died is what I've explained to you, is probably during the 200-year period when the glaciers were receding. Now, the people all kind of congregated in the belt, in the subtropical, tropical belts and all. That's where civilization started going. Now, the evolutionist looks at that and says, that's the cradle of civilization. Not really. That is where everybody congregated, because that's where all the rain was, and that's where all the trees and the fruit and the vegetables and everything else. But that all changed. Now that cradle of civilization is a desert, and now we have seen things move a little further north. Now that's changing too. Next. 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 Don't want to be a nag about this, but... Okay. Is even Georgia around any place, or she's gone? Mark that, folks. I'm deserted. Poor me. Metallurgical factory, next. Okay. 4,500 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Kurian let me get this right. It's Netgardchurian. He's Soviet Armenian, I'm sorry. If anyone is Soviet Armenian, come correct me if I butchered that man's poor name. But he discovered in 1968, in Soviet Armenia, he discovers and opens up a metallurgical factory. Look at the date that they date this at. 4,500 years ago. Where's that put, that metallurgical factory? Real close after the flood. Remember the hammer? These people, prior to Babel, they started building up another world empire. They had, in this metallurgical factory, 200 furnaces. They had apparel. I'm talking about aprons, respirators for breathing, gloves. They had all the apparel that we have to work with metals in a metallurgical factory. They had all kinds of metal, bronzes, brasses. They had even some of the precious metals and some of the molybdenum and some of the other metals that we see out in the Hanford area. Okay? They were doing this. They had something else very interesting they found at this area. They found a pair of tweezers, long pair of tweezers. And it was a high carbon steel. Now they have never found, except for the antediluvian hammer, they've never found that metallurgy ever again. But the people that were working this could make a very high-grade carbon steel, every bit as good as anything we have made in swords or knives. And what kind of a tweezer was it? It was a very fine point tweezer, the same identical kind of tweezer that we use today when we pierce an egg to remove the DNA and extract and move it over to another egg. Okay? You've all probably seen little pictures of that, you know, where the scientist is simple. That's what they have. They found that here. Okay? What are they doing with that? Why did they make it? Next. In 1938, Wilhelm Koenig, obviously a German, discovers in Baghdad, in a bunch of boxes underneath the Baghdad museum there, he discovers all these strange objects, okay?